welcome to my talk. I was already introduced. So I'm Frank. I'm at Numata since August, so this previous slide was not up to date. I'm a contributor to Kyverno since for 3 years now. I'm the maintainer of the Kyverno Playground and as mentioned, the creator of the Policy Reporter sub-project of Kyverno. I'm also contributing to some other security-related tools like Falco Sidekick, for example. So, as you might intend, this talk is about security, and we already had a lot of talks about security, so we know it's a really wide field. So when I talk today about security, what do I mean with security? So what's the context of this talk? Not completely this, it's part of it, but what I'm talking about today are tools like this. So we're talking about admission controllers like Kyverno, Opa Gatekeeper, or Kubernetes, which validates your manifests against best practices, pod security standards, and your own policies. We talk about runtime security with tools like Falco, Trivy, KubeArmor, or Tetragon, which observe the behavior of your containers about misbehavior. We're talking about image scanning with tools like Trivy operator to check vulnerabilities of your running workloads, cluster misconfiguration, supply chain security, or compliance checks. So with all these different security tools in mind, we will have at some point challenges about the monitoring about these tools. Each of these tools has its own different ecosystem and different kinds of output. So we have web UIs, we have metrics, we have CLI outputs, audit logs, custom resource definitions, or webhooks and internal notifications. So let's take a deeper look at the CRD stuff. So a CRD is an extension of the Kubernetes API. So you can extend the existing resources like pods and deployments with your own custom resources. And in most cases, each of these tools has its very own CRDs. And resources of these CRDs has its own challenges like distribution across namespaces, across resources, or even clusters. So if you have one report per pod, you have for 3 pods, 3 reports. These pods can be in different namespaces. You can have other pods in other clusters. So how to get a complete overview about your reports. And when you have tools for it, they are often only support a kind of subset because the most integrations are extensions which managed by the communities. To get a clearer picture of this, let's take an example scenario. So we have a new cluster and we want to introduce some new security tooling. The goal will be to have a visual overview about the results of these checks or security findings and some Slack notifications when we really have crucial things that we want to tackle immediately. So as a Kyverno maintainer, I use Kyverno as admission controller. We use it to validate our workloads against the pod security standards. And Kyverno, for example, uses already the Policy Report CRD for validation reporting. We use Policy Reporter as a notification tool. It provides us with a web UI, with metrics and Slack notifications. At next, we have a runtime security tool. We choose Falco as a threat detection engine and runtime security tool. It brings some visibility in abnormal behavior, potential security threats, and compliance. Falco has the Falco Sidekick tool in its ecosystem. It also brings a web UI, metrics, and also supports Slack notifications. And last but not least, we use the Trivy operator to get image scanning and some compliance checks. Trivy operator also has built-in metrics, and it brings different CRDs for its different kind of validations. So we have vulnerability reports, we have config audit reports, and we have cluster compliance reports. We can use, for example, Lens as an EDE with a Trivy extension to get a better handling of the different CRDs. And we can use the webhook integration with Postly for Slack notifications. So with this small setup in mind, let's take a look what we now have. So we have 3 tools for the different kind of security we want to increase. We have 3 additional tools for integrating in our infrastructure. We can use Grafana as one potential tool for centralized monitoring. We have 2 web-based dashboards, and we need to configure these 3 additional tools to get our Slack notifications. And on top, we have a new IDE lens with the extension for the easier CID lookup. So that's a lot to set up and a lot to configure. For this purpose and to increase the user experience of this behavior, a new Kubernetes working group was created, the Kubernetes Policy Working Group. With these issues in mind, they have the motivation to bring a better overall architecture for existing engines and also give devs and end users a universal view of policy architecture in Kubernetes. The first outcome, or one of the first outcomes of this working group, was the policy report CID. It's, as mentioned, also a custom resource definition. It's a general one to help multiple policy engines or utilize a single source of truth for multiple engines to get an overview of your security-related outcomes. As CID, it has the benefits of a CID. You can use kubectl to get details, to see the complete output. You can use common Kubernetes dashboards to get a general UI for your CIDs. And there is a current work in progress to move this CID from the working group into the SIG out as its new home. If you're interested in the general work of this working group, you can check out the link, the GitHub repository of the Kubernetes 6 working group policy prototypes. So now that we know that we have a new CID which can handle or which is intended to handle different engines for a unified output, it brings no real value when we don't have any tool which uses the CID. So let's take a look how the adoption nowadays looks like. So at first we have the direct integration, means that the engine itself or the near ecosystem of the engine supports the policy report in some way. So we have Kyverno as native policy report output for validation results. We have Falco Sidekick, which is the official distribution tool for Falco within a policy report output. Tools like JS Policy offer a Helm or general configuration to switch from the internal CID to the policy report CID. And also tools like Kuborden nowadays support policy reports for audit scanning. And then we have the indirect integration, means that there are additional tooling from the community which takes the original output of an engine and converts them somehow in a policy report. So for examples in this case are the Kubebench adapter from the Kubernetes Policy Working Group itself. It's a wrapper about the Kubebench CLI and converts the output of the CLI in policy reports. Then we have the Trivy operator policy adapter, which converts the different CIDs from Trivy operator into policy reports. And we have a similar adapter for Tracy, which can be configured as a webhook for Tracy to convert the events into policy reports. So we have quite a lot of tools which already support the policy report in some way. So now let's take a look how we really can use this CID and work with it to get insights into our security. And for this, I want to introduce Policy Reporter, which adds observability and monitoring possibilities on top of this mentioned and described policy report. The motivation came from the mentioned issues you have with common CIDs. You have the distribution across your namespaces, your resources and clusters. So it's not an easy task to find all failures in a single namespace, because if you have 10 pods and each pod has its own report, then you have to grab a lot to find all failures. So it has different features. The UI is one of them. We have also regular email reports to different emails with a subset of namespaces. We can send external notifications to tools like Slack, as mentioned. We also have support for Loki, Elasticsearch, S3 buckets, AWS Security Hub, and basic webhook support when you want to introduce your own tool. We have flexible metrics you can use as a single metric for all your security tools in your Grafana dashboards. And as shown, the web UI with detailed information about your policies. It has a plugin system to get additional information like policy descriptions itself into the dashboard. We have authentication, custom bots, which I will explain in a second, and some more features. So now let's take a look into the demo. We have, as mentioned, Kyverno as admission controller, Trivy operator, and Falco installed. For the integration, we use Falco Sidekick in case of Falco, the Trivy operator policy adapter, and Kyverno has its native support. So I present the new UI, so Policy Reporter UI version 2. It's currently in the beta version and will be released end of September. When you open the main page of GitHub, you still will see the old UI, but there's already a preview chart, which I show you later. So when we take a look on the dashboard, we already see some summarizes with the different issues we have in the different tools we're using. So we have the Kyverno, Trivy, vulnerability, and config audit. We can check how many issues we have in a dedicated namespace. And the important one, we have an overview about all our resources violating some tool in some way. So without grabbing different reports, without checking different namespaces, we have a single point of view for our resources with all our different tooling. So we can check which tool produces the violations resource have. We also can go into a tool-specific dashboard, which reduces the amount of results for the given engine. So when we also only want to check what Kyverno produces, we can just go on the Kyverno page and see how this looks like. We can take a deeper look into a single resource and check really the different results, which will failed, what the description is, and based on the tool, we get additional meta information. So in case of Trivy, because Trivy produces only failing results, there is no pass CVE, it makes no sense to showcase Trivy only with failed results. In this case, we can configure it as severity-based engine and convert the UI on a severity base. So same like Kyverno, we have a list with our failings and the different metadata which we can use to check if we can already fix this vulnerability. We can also take a deeper look into a single vulnerability, get a detailed description, also affected versions, and if there are already fixes, which version was fixed. So we can really go into these single engines, see what failed, and get the reason, and depending on the information of the report, also how we can fix this. We also have a policy-based dashboard, so if you're interested how a single policy performs, so you want to introduce a new policy in your company. In case of Kyverno, you set the mode to audit, which means that no resource will be blocked. It will just validate your resources. You apply it in your cluster and you want to see how this policy now performs. You can get this information from this dashboard. You have a policy, you go into it, and as for the other dashboards, you see a per namespace overview and the different details also with some metadata, like how you can fix it in case of Kyverno. Then we have, as mentioned, custom boards. Custom boards are a way in a kind of multi-tenant or multi-team situation to provide dashboards for a subset of your namespaces. So we have team A, which is responsible for the user namespace. So they only see what's going on in the user namespace. We can also restrict the sources of the reports. So for a developer team, they should see what's failing against Kyverno and the Trivy config audit check. They are not really interested into the Falco outputs. This is something the infrastructure team will, for example, handle. And then we have team B, which basically is responsible for our payment and subscription namespace. So they can simply check how their resources perform, and they don't have access, or they don't need to see how resources in namespaces perform. They are not really interested in. We also, or maybe I can quickly showcase how this looks like in configuration sense. So I make it bigger in a second. Oh, it's the wrong program. So in case of custom boards, it's really simple. You can add an item to the custom boards, you give it a name, and you can use a namespace selector, or you can use a fixed list of namespaces as you prefer. We can limit the sources, in this case to Kyverno and the Trivy config operator. And yeah, as mentioned, we have support for OAuth. You can use secrets as reference for your sensitive information. And now let's take a look at the second thing we want to achieve, Slack notifications. So Policy Reporter is able to check when a policy report is updated, which of the existing results or which of the results in existing policy reports are new and which already exist. And then it can send these new results to your target of choice. We use Slack in this example. So we have a Kyverno channel in our Slack. We use a secret to get the webhook. We can set the priority. So you are able to filter past results, for example, or if you really only want results with a really high severity, you can also filter this one. And we are only interested in the Kyverno source. And then we have a filter for the Trivy system in this case, because we don't want notifications for this one. And then we have a second channel for the Trivy operator. This means when we now create a new deployment, for example, in the default namespace, we hopefully get some results as soon as the engine scanned our new resource and processed our report. We can come back to this. Oh, yeah. So yeah, now you see, hopefully, the result for our new deployment. So we have a list of our failed results in this case, and we have all kind of metadata we might need to fix this issue or propagate it to someone else, which should take a look on it. And yeah, in some seconds, we also should get the Trivy operator results. Yes, so other than that, we also can see these notifications in our dashboard. So you have an overview what kind of notifications are configured. In this case, we have our 2 Slack notifications. And Yeah, so this is the basic demonstration of the tool. We also can generate HTML reports and send them to a manager which are interested in this kind of information. Yeah, okay. Yeah, get back to the slides. So, which is the summary of this? So we are able to reduce the related or the tools we need to get an insight into our security to a single UI or metrics as you prefer. We have only to learn and to configure a single tool for kind of Slack notification, Security Hub integration. We can use additional features which other tools might not provide, like the custom bots, like authentication, like AWS Security Hub implementations and stuff like this. Yeah, but of course we also have some disadvantages. Also the opposite is the case. We might have some dedicated tooling for Trivy, for Falco, which kind of supports some features Policy Reporter doesn't have. So it's a trade-off. You not always have the support of a policy report for all tools. So if one tool does not have any kind of support for a policy report, then you will need again different tooling for this single engine in some way. We also have kind of deferred integration of new features. So when some tool gets a new feature, new information, like Trivy operator gets a new scanning capability with a new kind of CRD report, then it needs time that the adapter adopts this new CRD and converts them also into a policy report. And in case of adapters, we also have etcd size limits. So you basically duplicate the already existing Trivy operator CRDs into a second one, which needs additional space. There's one possible solution right now. So Kyverno introduced a report server, which is basically an additional database for policy reports, which means that this CRD is no longer stored in your etcd. Instead, it is stored in the policy or in the report server in a Postgres database. So you can shift this storage completely out into this external tooling. So that's already from my side.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I really like the UI of Policy Reporter, especially the fact that you implemented the dark mode. I think it's super useful. I just have one question. It's an open source tool,
Yeah.
and you had a Slack workspace. Can anyone join there and talk to you about it?
This Slack channel I showed you was just for demonstration.
Okay, sorry.
You can join the official Kyverno names workspace in the Kubernetes Slack workspace. So I'm really active in the Kyverno names channel within the Kubernetes workspace. You can also reach me over the CNCF workspace in the Kyverno channel. So.
Okay, so then now you know how to get in touch to chat more about Policy Reporter. We've got one question, but don't be shy, we've got lots of time. So the first question is, can the Policy Reporter recommend policies YAML files to apply when a vulnerability is detected?
No, this kind of feature is currently not available. What I did not show, in case of Kyverno, Policy Reporter can create policy exceptions, which is an additional resource to exclude a certain resource from a given policy. So in case it's a normal behavior that a resource validates against a given policy, but in case of Trivy operator, it cannot recommend anything.
And you showed Falco, Kyverno, and Trivy together, right? Are there any other tools that you're thinking about adding as support, or?
Yeah, as mentioned, any engine which in some way creates policy reports is supported. So Kubernetes is already supported. It also uses Policy Reporter in their tooling as an optional UI. JS Policy as mentioned, can be configured to create policy reports. So as soon as you create the CID, you can use all capabilities of Policy Reporter.
All right, do we have any more questions? Otherwise, please catch Frank in the break. Let's have one more round of applause for Frank. Thank you so much.